think besides the word sorry, it feels like AI is probably the most used word in the English dictionary right now. But what is the one question that everyone in the audience should really be asking themselves right now when it comes to AI?
Yeah, I agree, and how much AI is almost overused, and it's a bit sad because I sometimes cringe at it, and I've been in AI for such a long time, and so I went from when I said, oh, I work at AI, it was like, oh, cool, who's this weird person, to now, don't we all work in AI? And so yeah, it is super obvious, but I think the most important question, I think I sort of covered this in my talk earlier, was what's the ROI, right? What is, yes, you're working on AI, but how do you measure it? What's the impact? And how do you actually make sure it is doing what you want it to do? So measuring outcomes, not activity, measuring outcomes, that are at not just at individual level, but at organizational level. And so I think that's the biggest question I would just ask is, are you measuring outcomes at all? Do you measure them well? And are you succeeding at those outcome metrics that you have in place? So those are, I think, the top questions to think about.
Yeah, because without that goal, without knowing what you're trying to strive towards, how do you know if you get there? Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And Rohit, how are you using AI as a true differentiator inside your organization? And maybe what have been some of the challenges in implementing those ideas?
Right. So we started experimenting with this technology almost 5-6 years ago. We started with smaller proof of concepts, scaling them up to a journey where we've actually bought our own GPUs and we are hosting our models. We're trying to build on the data sets as we move forward. Primarily, use cases are underwriting, claims, servicing. Those are the specific areas which we are going after as we speak. We're still on the journey. We're on the path. I cannot say that we solved it. We are encountering milestone after milestone, newer set of problems that we came up with. Earlier was actually proving that it works. Second was proving it works, the accuracy at level of scale that we wanted it to. Third was getting onto the economics right. Then to a current stage where we are now looking at actually making the full stack work. And when I say full stack, I mean the hardware, the data, the model, the use cases, and embedding them into our existing work processes. So the full stack work has to be done. And it's a longest journey from our standpoint.
Thank you. So Tulsi mentioned the fact that the number one thing that we need to be thinking about is kind of where we're headed. And so Rohit, maybe another question for you. As many companies are moving past that sort of experimenting with AI phase and are now focused on proving AI outcomes and success, how are you personally defining and measuring the outcomes of your AI investments?
That's a tricky one because outcomes are defined by people and people are changing, right? So over a period of years, we've identified a set methodology of building a business case. We're trying to move and fine-tune a business case for AI as we speak, and it traverses down all the full stack that we just spoke about from a technology standpoint. Second, we look at it from at least a 5-year horizon, not just a 1-year, 2-year horizon. We look at it from a longer term perspective, how this is going to change, what we are going to do. The last part of it is never underestimate the organization change required to do this. So those are the key things that we are working on currently. I think outcomes have to be very customer centric. Yeah, so most of the outcomes that we look at are very specific customer metrics that we look at. I'm just adding this piece because how many customers do you service digitally? How many customers turnaround time for servicing is there? What is the turnaround time? How you can draw that down? What is the additional value that you can give to a sales process going forward? By what percentage will you bring the fraud down? How do you bring down your early claims process? How much percentage point you will increase your persistency? Those are the key metrics that we would go after.
Thank you. Maybe we change gears a little bit and we talk about, wider use cases. So it seems that the majority of companies, have put the majority of their initial focus on AI within coding, within debugging. But Tulsi, where do you see AI having the greatest impact outside of development?
It's a very good question. I think for example, even Microsoft, we felt like the reason that I think also that people have been so excited about coding and actually seeing tangible outcomes there is, one, it's easier because it's all like everything is online. There's no offline thing that it feels like, at least it's not that it's not true, but it feels much easier to show end-to-end outcomes there, and it's also exciting for people to do it themselves. But I think we're seeing that coding is just a small part of how the entire business operations work. And I think the impact will come when the biggest impact will be in rewiring how businesses actually work and how they operate. And so a few examples would be like one, business operations, literally BizOps. So supply chain is a good example, right? It would literally proactively or autonomously doing end-to-end workflows that are able to predict, react, adapt, and resolve anything. Like, for example, supply chain is one example, right? But rewiring and rethinking BizOps is huge impact. And with the right context, with the right pieces in place, I think the impact there is phenomenal because margin-wise, cost-wise, and stability, it directly impacts the bottom line. Another one is customer engagement. I think that people are seeing also a lot, like customer engagement, resolution, ticket resolution, those sort of things. But also because you can now do extreme hyper-personalization of everything. And so it goes beyond just solving a problem for a customer, but really adapting and being super personalized. So I think that's another one where we've seen impact already. So I think,
yeah, thank you. And Rohit, have you got anything to add to that? Any other insights from a practical perspective?
No, I think tech for tech will work definitely because it's this audience itself. But what we are looking at tech for society, we're looking at tech for environment, we're looking for more humane tech. That is where the challenges are. I'll give you a very simple story, right? Build a voice agent. I've heard voice agents, right? So all of us have done that. Voice agents, it talks beautifully. It will tell you exactly, converse with you. If you're trying to solve a problem, sell something, get more information, it's just giving you everything. In between, you're giving him some information as a human being that, hey, I'm not well today and I'm probably, can I do this tomorrow? He's not programmed to be empathetic. You're missing out that vital clue. That's the vital clue of making our machines more humane. If we do not make our machines humane, we'll end up living in Mars because machines will live here and we'll live in Mars.
I don't want to live in Mars, to be honest. Rohit, I'll stick with you actually. When it comes to AI model selection, and it really does feel like at the moment it's the majority of companies that have been experimenting with AI have just sort of gone with all of the big four LLMs simultaneously as well. But as we're discovering, different models do excel at different things. So how are you thinking about optimizing for different tasks and use cases?
Yeah, so we learned it the hard way. There are different nails and different hammers. You have to use the right nail and the right hammer. You can't use a large LLM, 100 billion parameter LLM each time to solve a simple query. There are times RAG works, there are times a tiny LLM will work, a SLM will work if it's very domain specific. We'll have to identify the specific query, the right tech behind it to be solved economically. A lot of people started using a very large LLM to create a knowledge base and create a chatbot on a knowledge base. How do you get an ROI out of it? How do you get an ROI out of, if I put all the policies for my customer service agents into an LLM and it It keep asking questions if this policy is okay, if this policy, this condition will work or not. Will I get an ROI for that? I will not. We have to identify the right set of technology for it to scale at a level. That is extremely important. That's why most of the AI projects are not able to scale. We all learnt it the hard way.
And absolutely feed it with the right context as well. Yeah. I think let's talk about supercharging your AI investment. And, I think we can kind of all agree, and we're working this out right now, that intelligence isn't the differentiator anymore. Everyone's got access to intelligence, and it really is around context. So what does connected organizational context actually mean? And how do you make AI useful through it? And how maybe did you move from AI that generates generic outputs to AI that actually understands how your teams are working, the tribal context?
Yeah, and that is critical. I think that is actually why most things fail. Like when most AI projects also fail, apart from the quality issue, but because it's disconnected with how the team works. It doesn't have context. And yes, with RAG and stuff, you can build that in, but it's so hard to keep doing it on the fly. And so again, I said this in my previous talk, but the Atlassian CEO Mike Cannon-Brookes, he said that really, really well. Like intelligence is the engine, context is the fuel that powers it, and so having that really like up-to-date context graph as just always sitting there as a layer for the intelligence to use for grounding is super critical. Just like, again, we've seen that even in personal uses, right? Like grounding on search data is so critical. Like everybody is realizing that that's the crux of it. So again, for enterprise, grounding is even more important, not less. And so without that context and without grounding, and we've seen that with data that, with grounding, answers are like 40-50% more accurate, and it has lower cost because it knows exactly what to pull out. It is so much cheaper and it's better. So context is not optional anymore, because anything else that you're doing without context is just AI slop at this point. And we don't need more AI slop in the world at this point. So
I completely agree, because if we don't know why we made a certain decision 3 years ago, how do we make sure we don't make a bad decision now, or the same decision and we don't learn from it? Rohit, have you got anything else to add to that in terms of what you're doing to really ensure context is there?
Context is your data. Yeah. Context is your process. Context is your business rules, right? We need to keep them clean. That's the most important thing from a context standpoint. What technology to apply is incidental. Right? There'll be multiple technologies to apply to create that context layer. But 3 things, your data. If it is federated, if it is thrown all over, if there are issues from your data standpoint, you'll not get your context right. Your work processes clean, straight, documented. Your business rules documented, straightforward, right? Well-written business rules. That becomes your context, and that becomes your superpower to enhance and build onto the LLM going forward. Yeah, I've known cases where a lot of SLM models are available straight out of GitHub. You can just download and start using, but you will never have the context because that's with you. But that is the grunt work that needs to be done.
I completely agree. Thank you. Okay, maybe a final question for you, Rohit, if you don't mind. I'd love to finish by addressing the change management required in everything that we've just discussed. So what are you thinking about when it comes to the changes you need to make to your processes and et cetera in order to support your AI strategy?
AI is not incremental. If we start thinking of AI as an incremental technology, we will not be able to harness it. I think what's important is to have a complete mindset change when we are implementing a technology like AI. For that, our organization structures need to be rethought of. How do we rethink our organization structures in terms of the way we are designed? We are designed still in Henry Ford T model, if most of the organizations, right? We're still in that era where the T model is getting built. We have a process, we have an input, we have process, output, decision, yes, no. That does not work in an AI era. AI era learns on its own patterns. We have to identify organization structure best fit to that so that we can harness that. Underlying data will decide the process. Process cannot be set. That's a very fundamental shift in AI. The underlying data itself will decide the process. Process will not be set like we used to build a production line. How do we build organizations to support this kind of a structure is a challenge. We don't have a right fit answer. There is no right fit answer for this. But it is an immense change from a skill standpoint. It is a big change from the way of working standpoint. It's a big change for organizations with structure work as well. You know, how do you structure your work across? So those are the pieces. And finally, JD, earlier panel was talking about new roles coming in. New roles is just the tip of the iceberg. Actually, the ways of working has to be changed from that standpoint. Yeah.
It's also an incredible opportunity, right? To think about what got us here is not going to get us where we need to go. It's that moment to rewrite the history of how you've done things. So, I mean, it's a challenge to take on, isn't it? And anything that you would add to finalize that?
I agree so completely. I think the biggest change, the biggest issue, even in like how we build products with AI, is if you're starting to think about bolting it on, which most people do. It's very common to say, all of this works. Like, you know, that we're all wired to say, if it's not broken, don't like fix it or don't try to, you know, change it. And so because we're wired that we were like, all of this stuff works, I don't want to throw it away because I spent 2 years or 3 years or 10 years building this system and it makes me money today. Great. Keep that and do some bolted on stuff there. But like, have somebody and some set of people literally saying, let's start ground up. And that's why a lot of these AI disruptor startups are doing really well. They may not be able to do the whole mile. Obviously, they won't be able to do everything unless they have the context and they have the depth. But they're able to do that first big disruption because they're just saying, I imagine I know nothing and how do I start from scratch? Because now I just focus on what is the problem and I have this incredible set of tools that I can go through at this problem in the right way. So I think just having the audacity to almost throw everything out and then rebuild it back up is very critical. So
within the regulation.
Within, yes. Yes, with governance.
I'm from fintech, right? So
absolutely, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, both of you. Incredible insights. I personally have got a lot to take away, and I'm sure the audience do too. So yeah, quick round of applause. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse.